Welcome to the Space Economy, Dr. Bruno. It's a real pleasure to have you on. I know that you recently participated in SpaceCom, and we're big fans of SpaceCom and everything they do for the space commercialization conversations and industry. And I also knew I want to talk to you particularly because Aequor does something different than a lot of the other space firms that were there at SpaceCom this year. And so hopefully you can share that with me and educate me and also the audience if they're out there in cyberspace.
Right. Well, it's my great pleasure to be here. My name's Marilyn Bruno. I'm the CEO. I am not the technology person who is a marine and medical microbiologist, Cynthia Brazel. And let me share a screen and bring you to our origin story. So the name Aequor comes from the Latin. It means the sea in Latin. And as you'll see, if I can get it up, we are hoping this is not it.
I'm gonna just keep talking to you then, because I was doing a lot of the reading. So one of the things that I saw referenced was that that JPL report about, what was it, 100 and something different micro bacterias and fungi up there in microgravity with the folks on the ISS. So you guys have a solution for that.
We do. So luckily, we heard many years ago about the NASA problem of biofilm in space. So most bacteria and fungi on Earth form a protective shield called biofilm. And we know this, for example, as plaque on our teeth. That is biofilm. And you know, once it forms, you cannot brush or swish it away. You have to scrape it off. The same is true of all biofilm. So when we heard that there was an issue of equipment degradation, et cetera, from bacteria, we asked cases if this was biofilm related, and of course it was. And through that, we met astronaut health directors who said that every astronaut returning to Earth had a biofilm-related infection due to bacteria in the water supply.
Oh, wow.
So that initiative...
I didn't know that part of it. Okay. So we're not just talking about the health of the equipment and the station, we're also talking about the health of the astronauts themselves.
Well, it's mission, it's life support. So it's absolutely critical to the mission, to the manned missions. So what was interesting for us was to have the opportunity to work with Marshall Space Flight Center, which had a simulator of the water recycling system used on board the International Space Station. And there it is. So literally every drop of liquid that the astronauts produce or throw away, like their soapy water or ambient humidity, it's all sucked into this system, filtered many, many times, and it comes out as potable water. Right. And the astronauts drink this over and over and over again.
Yeah, we've talked about that before on the show, where the recovery rates on the ISS are, well over 90% recovery. So they're using the same water all the time. Yeah.
And this is critically important, but also when you find out that there are 130 biofilm forming bacteria found on surfaces inside the ISS, you now have a problem because nothing they can use works. They can't use anything toxic. So here on Earth, they throw very harsh disinfectants at the problem and kill the bacteria. You need 1,000 times the dose of a disinfectant to remove biofilm, just to give you an idea. Once under the biofilm, and here's the wrinkle, biofilm forms thicker and faster in space than on Earth. Not only thicker and faster because it's protecting the bacteria from radiation, low Earth gravity, all the weird environmental conditions, but it doesn't follow the same growth pattern at all. It builds like strange, structures. So this is considered life-threatening and impossible to remove. So what they had been using in this system was silver. And silver, the bacteria being very smart and survivors as they are, they developed resistance to the silver. So this was causing the problem.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. One of the questions I would have too, and this is something I'd read about previously, was the use of copper and the use of copper to help build some sort of bacteria resistance, to equipment or to devices. Was that also part of this or attempted, or is it just, is it going to be the same thing with silver? They'll just adapt.
Well, among the natural antimicrobials, you have silver, copper, things like that. Some minerals, meaning bacteria cannot grow on them, but they cannot remove biofilm once it's formed. So they have a useful, use, but not a definitively useful role in given the problems. And as NASA Health said, no one would arrive alive on Mars unless you have this water system fixed.
Well, let's repeat that, because we've got a lot of big Mars enthusiasts in our audience. Yeah. So you're not going to get to Mars alive without Aequor. Is that what I just heard?
Without a remedy for the water recycling reuse system. We, of course, know that ours is a superior product because our chemicals are new. They were discovered in the ocean by Cynthia Brazel. She discovered them by looking at the underwater world and understanding that nature had solved the problem of bacterial biofilm formation, because it's the beginning, it's the initial step of marine fouling. Most people think barnacles, mussels, and algae just glom onto surfaces. They're glomming onto the biofilm on the surfaces. So she understood that a clean surface seen in this picture must have something going on blocking the formation of the biofilm. And
so for these chemicals, for these chemicals and for these treatments that you're describing that were found in nature, is that where the award came from? Because I remember also reading that you guys received a NASA iTech award.
Yes.
And that's
well, inspired by one of the many chemicals she discovered, we found 25 EPA approved analogs that could be used and sold. And basically, they eliminate not only regular bacteria and fungi, where everything else fails, but they also kill the antimicrobial resistant superbugs on Earth and in space. So you have lots of data, lots of proof, that after our 3-year study at Marshall Space Flight Center, starting out looking like this, boom, you have absolutely nothing growing. And one dose lasted over 15 months without replenishment. And then they shut down the system. So we could have probably gone on for longer. So we won the NASA iTech award. And this is also a paper that NASA presented at the International Conference of Engineers, industrial engineers, showing that, quote, our remedy entirely eliminated the bacterial growth.
With this paper, are you, obviously I see Dr. Burrell's name on there. Yeah, are you allowed to share this? Could we share a link to this paper with others? Okay.
Sure. So it was presented at this ICES conference, and we did win the iTech award. And then we won many other things. For example, NASA put our name forward, and we were selected by the US government to represent American innovation at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. So that was our big reward for doing this. And of course, on Earth, there are many, many applications of this technology.
Yep.
But the uniqueness and why we're having this talk is it has a big role to play in space. And we know that JPL is aware of, I mean, they are the gurus of microbial contamination on surfaces inside the ISS. And they've invited Cynthia to spend a week there, and she just hasn't been able to figure out the timetable to do that. But it would be an important thing because she is one of the gurus of biofilm. But the presentation ends with cheers.
We have less fungus and bacteria in our water. We're happy.
Yeah, so it's all good.
You know, as someone who as someone who also knows the importance of water quality in something for terrestrial use cases, particularly with brewing, are there cross applications here? Is this one of those examples of a technology that has a really great fit for the ISS and for space, but also has a good fit here on Earth? How's that look?
Many, many applications on Earth. So we were very lucky to get validations not only from NASA, but Lonza tested our chemical against superbugs. Nothing else known can remove biofilm at non-toxic doses. USDA did testing on surfaces, like in cleaners that we've developed. And the water treatments are absolutely our forte, and especially the Department of Energy found that in fermentation and brewing, as you mentioned, they're using yeast.
Yep.
And yeast clumps. So our water treatment declumps the yeast, which allows for an increase of productivity of ethanol production or bioethanol production in the case of using algae and plant residues to ferment. But it's the same thing for any fermentation. We kill the bacteria that are attacking yeast, for example, without the use of antibiotics. And who knew that fermenters were using antibiotics in their process?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that ends up in the animal feed that's sold as a residue. So we're in a lot of work at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. That test finished, and now we're doing projects with Sandia National Lab, showing boosting, boost of up to 40% in half the time, simply by removing this bacterial problem and clumping.
Would a brewer or someone who maybe has a friend who owns a brewery be able to start using this? Could they test it out? Could they be part of the trial? Yeah.
These are for sale.
Okay.
So we have chemicals that are not yet for sale because they're not yet EPA approved, but we have 25 chemicals that are EPA approved, and we've formulated them in different products, water treatments, surface cleaners primarily, and those are available for immediate sale. But NASA was our first customer, so we're pretty happy with it. Bragging rights.
Well, I think it's important, particularly when we talk about the space economy. This is a great example of a company that's participating in the space economy because what they've developed, what you've developed at Aequor, is something that works for solving space problems, but also works for solving Earth problems. And so I think that's an important part of the conversation, because too often when we're focused on space technology, everyone wants to talk about a satellite or a launch. But sometimes they're not really focused on, well, there's also a lot of other things that are contributing and making life up there possible and life down here better. So I think that's what Aequor is doing. It's very interesting. I love it.
To have this platform to talk about it. Of course, our hearts are on the medical side, because every superbug, meaning every antimicrobial resistant pathogen, is a biofilm former. And you can take all the antibiotics you want, but they will never work in the presence of biofilm. So we're specialized in that. Nobody likes to hear this. So it's a problem. But sooner or later, we are standing at the ready to solve that problem. And
my sister's a nurse, and I'm sure she could talk for an hour or two about superbugs and problems with that. So we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I've heard it. I sympathize.
we see this all as being extremely related. Wherever
Yeah.
you have bacteria and fungi, we can solve the problem. And they are a much, much bigger problem in space than on Earth because of their weird biofilm. It grows very fast, and these convoluted shapes. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
We've got biofilm 101 for people who don't know what it is. It really starts as glue to glue the bacteria to a surface, but then it builds, making the shield. Mm-hmm. And then it grows. And in the same biofilm, other bacteria are captured, even viruses. And then they spread in air and water. So they are bringing entire colonies to new surfaces with the built-in biofilm. That's very dangerous. This is why they spread, this pathogen spread is so fast.
Well, and the way they apply to surfaces, if I remember correctly, I don't want to go over my depth here, but once they attach, it's that's it. It's you can't get them off. It's irreversible, right?
Really,
so
scraping works, but they're finding some very, very alarming things going on, like in plumbing. People are getting sick because of biofilm in their shower heads, and then they inhale the Legionella, or in air conditioning. And as I say, we adhere to what we call One Health. You can't separate animal health, the environment, and human health. The bacteria are being shared.
Right. We're all part of the same biome.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Well put. Yep. But this is why our one chemical can knock all of this out, which is why we are excited about the work we're doing and hoping for a flight on orbit to prove our worth on board the ISS.
Well, I love it. And if people wanted to find out more after watching this episode, where could they go? Where could they? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so join
AequorInc.com.
Okay. Yeah, we cannot do this alone. I have no intention of doing any of this alone. We're a very tiny, woman-owned small business. Licensing and partnering is our middle name. And we are excited to work with people who understand the problem and can share with us developing solutions.
Excellent. Well, Dr. Bruno, thanks for coming on The Space Economy. I think this was fascinating. I know this is going to be an episode that my sister watches, at least. So, but I think this is such an important conversation. And, when we're talking about superbugs, and for a lot of people, they probably don't understand that, solutions that are going to help us in space to survive to get to Mars are also going to help us defeat superbugs here that are causing real problems in hospitals around the country. So that's fantastic.
Life support. That's what we do.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
My great pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
See you next time.